Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ross Quit. I know it's been a while since I've done one of these. I was having issues with my new microphone, trying to figure it out. I hopefully have everything figured out, so hopefully you can hear me correctly. I've been wanting to bring you guys the Comic Bentos, but I was a little iffy on how I was doing it with you guys the past few times. I actually deleted one of my previous videos because I didn't feel it was up to the par of what I wanted to do. But I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna start over from what I was doing. I have 4 months of Comic Bento here that I've been posting on my Facebook page what I got and showing what my favorites were for each month. So I'm gonna go back over the first month really quick. I had 4 comics from the one that I showed you on the thank you video and the unboxing. I had the Courier from Xenoscope. Knight's Dominion. What is this? Knight's Dominion by Oni Pressed. Weird World from Marvel, and a continuation or a revamped story arc of Exo Manowar. Personal opinion: the best one from this month had to be Knight's Dominion. It was a cross almost between, I'm gonna have to put it out there, cross between the Avengers and the Darkest Dungeon. You were like a team of elite fighters, but it's so just very dark. If you've ever played the Darkest Dungeon, it's you have bards, you have assassins, you have clerics, you have mages, and that sort of thing. But it's actually very well written. The pacing is excellent. The second best from that month, I'm actually going to have to give to the Courier. Very well written. The female protagonist was very well developed. No nonsense. Just a really cool read. So I highly recommend those two if you ever get a chance to read those, or if you can find those. If you want, if you want to see anything with those later on, let me know. I might try to do some pet project that I tried starting a while back, but never had a chance to. So I'll get back to you on that. So the second month, which was the video that I started and then did not feel was up to par, so I deleted it. I admit it. Was not completely sure how to do the videos onward, so I just kind of left it to chance, but now I'm doing it now. So the first comic from the second month of my Comic Bento was called Court of the Dead. Nope, this way. Sorry. Court of the Dead. This is actually a release from Comic Bento through Insight Comics. So this comic was first released on the Comic Bento. I thought this was going to be just a straight horror comic, but this was very interesting. It's actually a heaven versus hell story arc with Death actually being the overall hero. He brings people who are worthy to his court in order to stave off the denizens of heaven and hell who are stealing souls pretty much for their everlasting war. Big surprise. Next was Dead Drop. This is almost I don't want to say Avengers because it's a series of heroes from the Valiant story arcs, including Exo Manowar and a guy named Archer who actually uses a crossbow in modern day life. But it was a good story arc. I just don't know how I felt about the characters together. So, God damn it. Excuse me. So, Dead Drop, Valiant. Series of 4 issues. Next, we had a pair of Grindhouse comics. So we have the Flesh Feast of the Devil Doll and the Bride of Blood. These were very graphic, but very well developed. I actually liked both issues. Am I going to say it's my favorite from the month? Not really, but it was still really good. Last one for that month was a compilation of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They're individual story arcs for two allies and 2 enemies. Hence why the subtitle is called Allies and Enemies. I didn't see it the first time, so I actually liked it. They were well written. Gave some characters some backstory and developed them further from what they were doing. So I will give this one a read, but if I have to give anything for this month, it has to be The Court of the Dead. That was just a remarkable story arc for what they were doing. So highly recommend, if you can find this, give it a shot. I will highly recommend that. All right. And last month was kind of a digital themed. I'm going to save that one for last. So the weakest one, but I still enjoyed it because it was a classic Save the Princess story arc. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens in it, but it's called this. It's called Skinned. What's interesting is that because it's supposed to play in the effect of the eye, your vision, what you see is based off of like a higher entity just messing with you. Every other panel is something different, so you might be in a situation where you're going to save the princess, and all of a sudden it's a Star Wars theme, or you're going to find Sanctuary, and I actually noticed it was a scene from Uncharted 3, which I found hilarious because that's one of my favorite game series. Good story, interesting visuals, or interesting art. I didn't feel it meld with me as well as some of the others. So I'm going to go ahead and say that was the weakest of the four for that month. I'm going to go with this one next. The next one was from Dynamite Comics called Magnus Robot Fighter. This was very interesting. It's set in the future, but then you get sent farther into the future, so if that makes sense. But it has some really good cliffhangers at the end and some really thought-provoking action scenes and I guess like robot life situation. I don't exactly know how to explain it without ruining anything. So, really good. I'd say give it a shot if you're interested, but this was okay. I'm actually going to say this was my third favorite of the month. It's going to be blasphemous when I say this. I'm actually going to do this one. I'm going to do this in order of my favorite. I have Avengers Rage of Ultron by Rick Remender. This was actually a very good story arc. It has the whole Hank Pym and Ultron like family problem relationship thing. Great art for it as well. But it just didn't click with me as much as the last one. This is my number 2 for this month. Great story arc. But just didn't have the same charm as the last one for that month. The last one this was March's. The last one for March was another Comic Bento exclusive, so I'm guessing you can't get these unless you get them on eBay from someone who's bought Comic Bento. But the last one is a comic called Psycho Bonkers. I know it sounds childish and everything, but it's a very cute, sweet story of a girl and her like sentient race car. It's kind of like Wacky Racers mixed with like superistic cars, like futuristic cars. Futuristic cars. It was actually very, very cool in the art style. So hold on, let me see if you guys can see that really well. I mean, the art style is actually quite well done. I enjoyed the pacing of it. I actually read it in almost like an hour and a half. I read 5 issues in an hour and a half. That's how the pacing was. I had to put that as number 1, even over the Marvel comics. So, sue me if you're gonna. But I have a soft spot for indie comics, which I'm glad I get 3 indie comics every month, pretty much. So now for the bread and butter, I have this month's set. Okay, I'm not going to do the box openings on screen anymore. They just take up too much time, so I just have the comics off to the side here. The first one I'm going to show you is from Valiant Comics. It's called Savage. I have not read any of these, so I'm not giving any recommendations or my review type situation. The first one up is Savage by Valiant. I see a kid or teenager highly beat up with a small knife holding a Tyrannosaurus in his hand, like a raptor in his hand. It kind of reminds me of like a young Turok. I'm not sure if that's how it's going to go, but we'll see what goes from there. So that looks interesting. Next we have Ride. There we go. Ride, it's a blonde girl with a huge thing of bubble gum on the front. Ed Brubaker gives it a good recommendation. I don't see any synopsis for it, and I don't want to kind of just read it for you. I don't know much about this. It has something to do with a road trip or something. I'm not entirely sure. I could be completely wrong. Anything that Ed Brubaker kind of gives a recommendation on, I'm going to read. Ed Brubaker is probably one of my top 5 comic book authors. So I'm going to give that a shot. I'll see what you guys think about it at the end. I'm going to show you this one next, and then I'm going to say a comic series that I've been really excited to try for 8 years, and I got it for free in this. I got it in this Comic Bento. So the next one is called Wars in Toyland. So this is imagine you getting sucked into your own imagination as a child. So this is pretty much what it is. So you have a thing of army men that you're using to protect your kingdom and your imagination. Now imagine that has to happen. I have a feeling that's what this comic is. That's what the synopsis sounded like it was supposed to be. So I'm going to take all these 3 with nothing, like no prior knowledge of take it in. The last one I've been really excited to try just because it's one of the major Marvel story arcs. I got my little thing right here. Didn't know I still have that. Major story. This is one of my, I had to say this is probably my number 1 or number 2 favorite comic book writer. So this is Brian Michael Bendis's Avengers: Fear Itself. I've been wanting to read this for almost 8 years. Never got around to paying for it, like buying it, just because money's tight. I had some other comics that I was reading, blah 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 blah, so on and so forth. But this has been one that I've been really interested in. I'm really happy that I got it. We got Thor on the front, and we got Daredevil on the back. Now, it has a really interesting synopsis on the back of it. It's what happens to Daredevil, the man without fear, when he faces fear itself. I'm really interested in seeing what this comic is going to bring, because it's my favorite comic book artist with a really good team of artists and letterers and colorists and everything like that. So I'm going to really hope that one lives up to the standards that I'm bringing with this. Those are all the Comic Bentos from the last 4 months. So the next videos will end up being a little shorter because I'm going to just do this month's and this month's review and then the next month's. Sorry it took me so long to get back to these. Let me know if you like any of these, if you want to hear more about these comics. And the news that I was going to bring up is Island Fang 87 recommended that I go back to a pet project system that I was doing where I pretty much do a soundtrack for comics. So if there's any of these comics that you want to see and hear, or if there's a comic strip that you really, really like and you want to see and you want to hear how my interpretation of what the comic would sound like, let me know in the comments and I'll see what I can do with that. But anyways, thank you very much for joining me for another episode of Ross Quit. I know this was a little bit longer video, but I hope to see you all next time. Stay tuned on the channel for more Uncharted and Knack, plus any videos that I might do with Island Fang and Wife Quit. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you all next time. See you later, everybody.